Okay, we are live again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're coming from. Me and Itzik are here to go over another CTF challenge. We're going to reveal it. This is part of our OSP 10 learning to write secure code training. And hopefully some of you I know for sure have solved it. This was a 3-paper, so this is actually a pretty hard one. And I'm really excited to share how to solve this. And yeah, let's just get into it. So Itzik, why don't you explain what's going on here before we even try to solve this, and then we'll show how to basically hack this code.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Gabby. So let me jump straight into it. So this is a code that the goal of the code is to create some sort of a card invitation, okay, using a template engine. Pretty common and popular one on Node.js. It's called EJS. So we're using that to create a template of some sort of invitation that the user controls the template, but also controls the inputs that to incorporate in the template. And it's a fairly simple piece of code, which actually here validates pretty strictly 3 different arguments that we intended to insert into the template, which are first name, last name, and role. And this piece of code here, the while here, which you're seeing here, while I equals templates. I don't know if you see my caret, my cursor.
Yeah.
You do. Okay, great. So the while here is preventing other arguments that are not first name, last name, and role. And if you try to insert any other such argument that includes anything else, you'll get this error. So
Which is
it
good.
does it pretty well. It does it pretty well, to be honest. Okay. Then this piece of code here is for the challenge. That's to show that I actually captured the flag. So we added this piece of code. We'll talk about it. It's like if you really found the champ key, you'll get this, and that would grant you the flag. Okay. That's not here to show anything real that is done. And this piece of code is probably the most important one, try and catch here, which we take the JSON, the body from the JSON, we take only first name, last name, and role and inject them as data. And we use the EJS render method with the template, the data, and the JSON, which we'll talk about it as the configuration. Once that is done, we just return the new string, the new template already incorporated as a string. Very, very simple piece of code. Okay.
So why don't you show us what it looks like, the expected behavior in terms of the inputs?
Oh yeah. So expected behavior is grab one example here. Okay. Second. So second. So the template here, I'm just creating a template so that we can do it. Okay. Copy it here. So what would be expected here is that we use something like this. We put a template name, okay? Oh, sorry, a template. Put some text here, incorporate first name, last name, and role, and then provide the values, okay? So here I provided only first name. When I hit this, what I'll get is it's it, because that's the only thing that is in my template, and then this dot here. Those
So it's just reflecting. So it's basically it's reflecting what you put in. Very, very simple.
So if I put Itzik,
yeah.
Spitzen, let's say. Okay, so we can do last name here. Right? So if I do something like that, and it should give me, my template is a little bit more high. It's Spitzen. Okay?
Yeah.
So I can create a card, incorporate those 3 fields, and if I try to add a field that is not listed, I'm expected to get an error, right? Because the system returns me an error. If I use an API, tool, the 400 would be explained that I got, and we can look at the code here. we can look at the code here. I got this message, the 400. Okay,
Gotcha.
this message. Okay, so
And
that's
we
the
want
yep.
and we want to steal the key, right?
We
The
want to
champ
steal the
key.
key. So
Okay.
we are looking at server-side template injection, which means that this server runs on the server. This template engine runs on the server. What we're trying to do is we're trying to do something that is not intended, that is very powerful on the server. So injecting anything into a new argument that includes text, we can't do, because this code here prevents us from doing anything like that. However, okay, what is important to mention is that we are providing also configuration to the EJS render method. Okay, as we are doing something like that, okay, we need to understand what type of configurations can be in here. And if we look at the configuration, one of the things we can do, okay, in the documentation, we can read it. We can change the delimiter, okay, the characters that are delimiting, that by default are less than, greater than, and percent. We can change them to something else. In which case, it's very, very dangerous, because our validation code here counts on it that the delimiters will be less than percent, right? And not anything else. So if we change it, we might be able to insert other variables which are not necessarily the intended ones. Make sense, Gabby?
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, let's see the solution, and then we will see exactly why it's working like that.
Right. So here's the solution. What we'll do is we'll take this. So go here. Okay. Um, we'll put a template, and instead of the delimiter, we will instruct the delimiter to be square brackets and a point instead of the bigger than, which will ignore that part, right? We'll not get into this part because we're searching for less than percent. And then instead of the variable, we will try to use process.environment champ key, which we know we have because that's the variable here. We'll try to steal it, right? And that's exactly what we'll do. We hit hack, and not surprisingly, we get this, which is the key, because the only thing in our template is that key. Okay? And now the next thing, in order to capture the flag, that's not enough, because capturing that is nice, but it's not what the intended response should be. I want to try to inject the evidence, which is this, into my template. And then the last step to capture the flag would be to actually do exactly that. Take the number that we just got, provide it as a champ key, hit hack, and here we go.
Gotcha.
We hacked it. Okay?
So go back for a second. Yeah. So what this was 3 papers, right? Not many people were able to solve this.
Yep.
Why do you think that's the case? Is it because people
to
don't
be
understand
very
the
honest,
vulnerability of
well,
template?
to be very honest, we're still, I still find it hard to rank them, because many cases I think something is simple, and then turns out that people find it a little bit harder. So right now we're trying to, set the number of peppers in the right way. But this one was indeed a little tough, because people don't really understand exactly what's the risk here and how to exploit it. And what's quite frankly is a little amazing for me is that it's all in the manual. The manual actually says it very specifically. And if you read in any, like in SNCC or any other cybersecurity vulnerability, website that actually talks about it, you will find this vulnerability, the delimiters issue, which is not like it's an intended behavior. It's not a vulnerability that anyone needs to fix. You just need to be cognizant. Like in this example, the fix here would be not to provide the configuration. There's no reason to provide that flexibility to the user in this case. And once you do that, you prevent the vulnerability from even existing here. But you need to understand what you're doing. And that's the main part. It's reading the manual.
Yeah, which is hard, right? For a lot of people, they just copy paste either from other people's code
Exactly.
internally, or for even worse, from external resources. They don't really understand what it does, but it does. It works, and if it
Mhm.
works, let's keep it. And I think that's something that we see a lot, this copy paste culture, without
Mhm.
actually understanding, especially when you are, either you're working with a new framework or a new library. I think it's crucial to read the manual, even if someone else has been using it forever. I think it's your responsibility to look at the manual and look for some vulnerabilities, because they're very clearly stated out there. And the
Mhm.
fact that people are even having hard time to hack this just shows that they're not reading the manual. So even the hackers are not reading the manual.
Exactly.
So the people that actually know how to hack, they know this, right? That's their sort of superpowers. They read the manual, so that's a superpower for them. And
Right.
but we need, that this is why we're doing this here, going back to the basics, and making sure that you understand the libraries you're using and how they're meant to be used, and not allow options that you don't need. um, if you don't need that option, don't give it, right? Because you
Exactly.
don't understand
Exactly.
it.
I think something is important to mention here, and I think you're on the mark there with what you just said, is that many times we use a very powerful library that does a lot. We use it for a very specific reason, but we're kind of like, why not? Let's use this, extended behavior of it and so forth. We need to be very narrowed down. We need to narrow down our usage and make sure that what we're using is exactly um, what we need, and we don't allow more flexibility that can be used against us. So if I think it's a good time to go through the takeaways. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that.
Great. So uh, in the write up here, okay, there's a description of the code. We went through that. What's wrong with that approach? Again, EJS render is accepting, configuration in there. Here's the manual, which we already went through. We already discussed the successful SSTI attack in this case with changing the delimiters, then using the malicious code here. The so what is really important. SSTI is extremely dangerous. It is a remarkably capable attack because in this case, I couldn't even run code on the server. I could only use the context of the app, which is still very, very dangerous because I get access to secret keys and stuff like that. But I can't run commands on the servers, for example. But in other SSTI examples, you can have even run shell commands, and you can run remote execution things, which are even more dangerous. So SSTI is an extremely important and powerful vulnerability that we need to think about. So the main takeaways, we talked about the read the manual, right? Read the freaking manual, very important. Whenever we use something, if we don't understand it, copy and paste are a big problem because I do it as well. I search for a solution for something, I copy and paste, but it's okay to experiment like that. But then when you commit that code or when you review that code, you need to understand exactly what you're doing, what every parameter is doing, why are you sending it, am I sending something that is not needed? Let's remove it. Okay, so we definitely need to think about that. Creation of template from string as a user input string is dangerous. We need to avoid it almost at any cost. Only rarely there's some apps requiring that flexibility. What we need to do is double down on the sanitization. We need to check the template back and forth and figure out whether this template really is exactly what it needs to be or not. It's pretty hard. So I would recommend against it. I would recommend creating templates in a separate way, or kind of like preset of templates that are controlled and verified, and only incorporating variables. In this case, the entire flexibility is given. This template engine is generally very, very safe. And even with that, I was able to fail here. Okay. And lastly, always remember, like now you're thinking, oh, people saw the code here and they have access to the code. That's why they can do it, but hackers can't do it. No, no, no. This is really a problem because hackers have a lot of ways to identify those things externally. there are ways, there are processes that help hackers identify the type of template engine that is being used. There are even flowcharts that help you do that. And when you know which template engine is being used, you know which vulnerabilities it has and which ones you can actually take advantage of. Like for example, here you go to this article. Actually, sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. In this article, you have a flow chart and even a video that identifies it, that shows you exactly how do you identify which type of engine are we talking about here. Okay, so it's really helpful for hackers, and they don't necessarily need access to the code, so just remember that.
Yeah. It's it's like a fingerprint, right? Like you can get a feel on how based on how it works,
Right,
which
based
framework
on the
you're using.
behavior,
Yeah.
they're checking the behavior of the template
Yeah.
engine, and based on that
Yeah.
they get the.
I think also in general, people are not good at risk assessment, and that includes coders. So they assume too much sometimes that you can't get in because if they don't see a way, they think it's secure.
Mhm.
So don't assume. Just have guardrails for you that protect you. And this is basically the stuff that you spoke about. How to sort of like least privilege, right? Like limit the access that you give someone
Mhm.
by limiting the parameters that or the functionality that you're offering, even if it's very flexible. Then don't just give it because it just works like that and you don't have time to research why it's not
Mhm.
working without that parameter. Just don't
Mhm.
let flexibility um, basically take over the security.
Absolutely. Sometimes as developers, we have the tendency, which is positive generally, which is, oh, I'll create it so flexible that I can do anything I want in the
Yeah.
future and so forth. It's fun to think about it. It's fine to think about it in the future. Pick the right library that you can expand in the future.
Yeah.
But the capabilities you're providing, don't over provide.
Yeah.
Just give whatever you need right now, and you know that you need it. And
Yep.
if you expand it, make sure that you're not giving overpowers.
So yeah, guys, that's it for today. Please join us. I think next week, right? We have almost every week we're doing this. These
Mhm.
are like 15, 20 minutes learning sessions. I think this is really good. It's free. You're here, you're watching this. You can. It's recorded. You can watch it later, and this is something so valuable for developers to learn because it's a skill that I feel that is missing for many developers. So invite your team here or use Wizer. We have that. We have those. We have videos specifically and labs and all of that within our own solution. So you can also use that, or just join us here and listen. That's it for now. Until next time.
Thank you very much, Gabby. Thank you,
Bye
guys.
bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, Itzik.
Bye.
Bye.
Until next time.